Okay, hello everyone. Today I'm actually recording something with my voice being put in after the fact. I usually just talk over the run itself, but in this case I just didn't have the opportunity. So we're doing an after commentary. I have no idea if it'll be decent or not. I've never really done this before, we'll see. But what we have here is a Tesla Lab Nightmare Solo, and this has never actually been done before. In fact, Tesla Lab in general has never been completed before this run. So I'm pretty excited to show you all this one. The run itself is not terribly difficult, but the boss is at least a decent challenge. Yeah, it's an interesting one. So for this we're going Lua Merope, or I know it's pronounced Merope, but I just find that I can't keep a consistent flow while I'm talking if I try to pronounce it that way. So we're still calling her Merope. Sorry for anyone who gets bothered by that. So yes, the start of the run, very calm for the most part. There's a lot of enemies, but they're very easily kiteable as well. The real thing to look out for is that the big guys, while they look menacing, are actually not the biggest threats. So I generally try to clear out other enemies first, unless the big guys happen to be blocking shots, and in that case, of course, I'll just kill them. You see that I'm doing that right now. It just makes sense to here. The working partas additionally have a special thing that you need to know, which is they have a minimum attack range. If you stand right up next to them, they just cannot hit you. Now their hammers bounce 3 times if they're out of range and do a huge amount of damage, so they're very important to work around. And there it is. Additionally, since the run has never been cleared before, I always try to take those sorts of runs slow. So, if we can, we just mostly avoid combat, if it's dangerous at least. By that I mean we'll try to lure enemies backwards, kill them one at a time, or kill enemies in groups if it's going to save time and it's safe. Right here I use my ult because I've got Lua's free one from the charge, so we're able to clear out the worker bots quite quickly. Now there's 2 types of worker bots, there's the melee ones, and then there's the ranged ones. And the ranged ones, they might not look like much, but when you have a lot of them at once, they actually do a lot of damage. So, despite being easy to avoid individually, sometimes a ton of them just spawn and you have no choice but to either swap to Merope and shield, or just dodge like your life depends on it, because it really does. Of course, the upgraded bolt turns again they're very dodgeable, they're just not a big problem. They shoot 2 little tendrils out of the ground, one of them exactly where you are and the other near where you are. I also end up getting a rare version of one here. I believe I already actually had this one, yeah, from a previous attempt of this run. I believe this particular run took 3 attempts? It might have been 2. It was 2 or 3. But yeah, I don't get the bonus X coins from it, but it's still nice to have a rare spawn. Now you'll notice that my ult is up quite soon. I'm assuming, if I'm playing this right, that I now save my abilities so that I can use the ulti when it matters. Yes, okay, good. I guess that's the other fun thing about looking over and commentating after the fact. I'll be able to see any little mistakes that I make. I don't usually rewatch anything that I do, so who knows, maybe there's little tendencies I have that I miss. Oh, I do lose track of the ult there, okay. So, usually with Lua's passive, if you stack up 5 you can use any ability. I'm not having a huge mana problem here, I'm only running flat MP, or no flat MP regen, but I'm running a MP while swapped. So if I swap off to another character I can really quickly recover mana. It means that using the ult to save mana isn't as big of a problem right now because I can just swap over to the other character. So if I'm using my charge on something that isn't the ult, it's probably a misplay, and in that particular case it definitely was. Now those little worm things are one of the more hazardous enemies of the run. They spawn little worms that chase after you and explode. However, if you don't run in a straight line, if you even take a little bit of a curve, they will just hit you. The other huge threat is the shock lash bolt turns like this one. They have difficult to dodge patterns, and more importantly they have an enormous range. Their attack range is about as large as Lua's attack range with a range up, which is absolutely huge. It's just not a good time. You want to clear those guys out really fast if possible, or lure them backwards. You'll see right here I'm stalling around, and the only reason is because Lua's mana is a bit low. Like I said, I'm running swap MP recuv. So the Lua mana will slowly recover. And we need as much as possible so that when we start up, we actually get the full benefit. Now this is one area where a ton of worker bots spawn, and more importantly the sentry versions. If you don't clear these all out, they will just destroy you. Like, these things do a lot of damage. I don't quite have an ult charge up, I need one more rotation, so I swap over to Merope, which is the correct decision there for sure. Merope's missile ability is actually very good in PvE, and you'll see I get hit by one thing, it stuns me, and then I get hit by something else, and that's half my health gone already. It's a very big threat. Also, because they do 25% of my health, it actually most likely will not pop a burst heal. So if I get hit 4 times, I just die. Makes it very important to dodge. I could have counted the hits wrong, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure 4 hits is kills. And for those who don't know, the burst heals, they heal you if you drop below 20% health. However, if you skip going below 20% because you get bursted down yourself, it just won't activate, you'll just die. It's quite saddening, really. So they only have fringe utility, but when they do work, they work really well. I take out the barricade, and one big reason is because I probably plan on swapping to Lua. And the other big reason is that I don't know what the enemy spawns are. So if there had been one of those worm things that spawned right there, I would have needed to have cleared the barricade so that I wouldn't get stuck with all the explosive worms and then not be able to dodge it. Makes sense anyways, I hopefully dodged the rocket. Oh, but I dodged into the shock bolter, and that's unfortunate. Now you'll see those whiplash lines. They do a lot of damage, but they're also very difficult to dodge, because it has a huge range and it has a bit of an erratic attack pattern. I got an achievement for being hit by those. Wow. That's impressive. I'm surprised there's achievements for actually getting hit by stuff. I would have thought all the achievements would be actually achievements, not just, oh hey, you suck, here's a medal. But apparently that's not the case. Now this room has a lot of upgraded bolterns, it has some worker bots, and later on the worms spawn too. The upgraded bolterns are the lowest priority, I just kill them if they happen to be there. The worker bots matter a little bit more, but still not very much because they're not the ranged ones. And then the worms are the must kills. So you'll see, even though there's so many of these bolterns, just by moving around and... well, you automatically dodge one of their 2 attacks just by moving. The second one you just have to dodge manually, and that's very easy as well, because there's a very low chance that it actually goes where you're headed, about 1 in 8, that it actually aims where you're moving. And even on those cases, you can just adjust your movement pattern to dodge it. Now, I happened to Merope ult at a really bad time. I didn't realize that was the worm spawning attack. I'm still not 100% used to their patterns. When they spawn the worms can body block for the big worms. Is just unfortunate all around. I assume I swapped to Merope here. Do I not? Huh, I guess that's a misplay in its own right. If you use Merope, you can just shield and then walk into all the explosive worms. And Merope shield blocks 5 attacks regardless of their strength. So even though those explosives do about 1/3 of my health, I could just walk into them with the shield up and it wouldn't do a damn thing. I think it's an objective misplay not to do that because it saves so much time and there's no real downside to it. I believe that's the last enemy of the floor, and it is. There's an ult gauge boost, it does nothing, there was no point to picking that up, but that's good. Of course, getting Lua healed on the loading zone is a good thing here. You basically have the choice of which character you want to heal by swapping onto the other character. So, the ones that have less tankiness, or in this case, no defensive abilities, are the ones that you want to heal. The big boltern's still not a problem, the G4s or whatever, those are a bit more of a problem. The missiles, while relatively easy to dodge, will follow you forever. Well, actually it's not quite forever, but when they reach the end of their path, they explode and do a bit of an AoE. And it's quite annoying because it's very difficult to keep track of when the path ends. It's not something you usually have to play around, so... it's occasionally going to get in a bit of a hit, for almost no reason at all. Of course, swapping back to Merope because I don't want to be able to use a Lua ability while I have the full charges. We'll see if I actually remember this time, I'm kind of curious. Getting into overheat because it doesn't matter there, there's no enemies. These shock panels on the ground, they do a little bit of damage every second or so that you stand on it. You can actually use Merope's shield to heal off of them, and I'm pretty sure in this run I actually make use of that. I very much hope that I do at least, because it's quite a useful idea. The shield you can even give to another character by shielding and then swapping, which is another tactic that I use quite often. So if I ever get a character too low, you can just go onto a shock panel and heal them. It saves a lot of time compared to just sitting around and healing default. Now the Whiplash Bolt Turn does hit me from there. I wasn't expecting it because I still wasn't used to playing around them. I hope I shield and stand on that. Excellent. That's exactly what I should be doing. So that's good. Wonderful. When the shield expires, it gives you 15% of your health, but only if it expires from being hit 5 times, not from time only. So you can see that I rapidly heal by just doing that. Wonderful. It also returns its mana if you get it broken, so that's really nice. The mass-produced bolt turn, similar to the explosive bugs, you just walk in a straight line. However, unlike them, you have a bit more leeway. You can curve slightly to the left or right and they still won't hit you. You'll see that I pop the shield and switch to Lua here, and it actually saves me from a hit. I also don't immediately Lua ult because I lost track of the ultimates again. So there's definitely room for improvement. I only really started playing Lua about a week ago. I realized she's very good at crowd control, or not crowd control, but AoE rather. And just as importantly, her ultimate refunding so often makes it so that the clears are fairly fast. There's also not many really strong blue clears. The reason I'm using Merope isn't even always for her clear speed so much as it is the shield, but the fact that she happens to be blue affinity makes her better for this stage anyways. Lua I'm only using because she's blue affinity. I don't think I'd use Lua if she didn't have the affinity bonus. And generally for Nightmare, you want characters that either have utility or massive damage with affinity bonuses on. Vonic's the one exception where he has massive single target damage, but it doesn't really matter what affinity it's in. He just always does damage, because he's just the highest single target DPS in the game, right? Of course, as an expense, he has basically no AoE at all, so you only use him in certain missions. And as you can tell by the amount of enemies that are on the screen at any given time in this one, this is not one of those missions. I pop the speed boost to make sure not to shoot while it's going on. If you shoot anything, then the speed boost wears off regardless of if it hits or not. Additionally, if you take damage, the speed boost wears off, or if you get buffed or healed by a teammate. So, another thing to keep in mind if you're actually not playing solo is that a teammate like Vita healing you will get rid of your speed boost, which could be a huge pain. Now I don't have my swap available for this part. You'll see I was frantically spamming that tag cooldown, and ended up getting hit anyways because it just wasn't up. It's one of the fringe cases where tag cooldown yellows would be useful, but at the same time, there's nothing on this loadout that I can sacrifice for it. I'm running one cooldown yellow, one mana regen while swapped yellow, and those are both essential to this comp. The cooldown yellow in particular makes Merope shield up just enough that on the boss cycles you can sometimes pop it twice with Merope before having to swap, which is hugely useful. Also, I actually do destroy the explosion terminal there. I'm not sure if it was actually supposed to shoot still. Ends up shooting anyways, or exploding rather, not shooting. It might just be because of my ping. Despite it showing as green ping, I actually have 120 constant ping, which is a bit of a pain, and occasionally it goes up to 200. I'm not sure what the reason for that is. Like, the server is hosted in Texas, but the 200 just doesn't make any sense. Regardless, it's possible to play around almost everything, the only exception being explosive enemies and lasers, which are just erratic. Now, of course, I could swap to Lua and do more damage here, but the reason I'm on Merope is because I need to heal Lua anyways. Ordinarily, I just stand around and let her passively heal, because I don't care about my time on this run. It's never been cleared before, so any clear is a first place clear. So we just need to play it safe, and in that case, it includes just spamming down one enemy at a time, while Lua gets a chance to heal. Managed to kill a bunch of worker bots at once there with that Q. Does a surprising amount of damage, because the first shot, while it goes through an enemy, actually does damage, and then when it explodes it does damage again. So if you aim it just right, you can get a lot of damage out of it. By now you'll have probably noticed the pattern on the laser floor is that it moves down and then it resets to the top when it goes to the bottom one. We're just making use of that by making sure that I'm never on top of a panel that's going to activate. You'll see I move up right there, and that's just to avoid the panel. I also managed to dodge the Shock Lash Bolter in that time, which is moderately surprising, considering. I also walk into the rocket there, and I don't use my ult because I don't think the ult will actually be in range. In retrospect, it probably would have been in range, but that was my thought process at the time. Now at this point I assume I'm going to check with Merope if the shield actually can heal off of these shock panels. In reality, I know now that they can't. I'm not sure if I tested that in this run, or if I tested it in another run later on. I believe I'll test it right here. Oh, I don't. Interesting. Okay, it must be later on then. Oh no, here it is. Yes, these shock panels, they deactivate too quickly, so you can't get 5 shocks off because the interval is too long. If they shocked more rapidly or left a DOT, it'd be possible to heal there. Now I have to swap back to Merope. Merope wasn't injured, so it was a waste of time. Lua starts to get healed back again, and I assume I just wait here. Yeah. So I'm going to fast forward it a bit, and then we'll join back after that. 1 second. Okay, there we go. So Lua actually wasn't fully healed. I really should have stayed for the entire heal. I think I must have just gotten really bored. The other thing is if you stand still too long, even in solo, it kicks you for being AFK, which I think really needs to be changed considering in solo there's no real reason for it to do that. In parties I totally understand because you don't want to keep your team up, but in solo, really, you get kicked for like 2 minutes of AFK. So if you want to go grab water or go to the bathroom or something, you just can't. Now, in this particular case, my burst heal gets popped, and that means we gotta wait again, not only because the characters are at lowish health, but because I need that burst heal up for the boss. At this point, I've only played the run. I believe this actually is my second run. So I've only played it once before, I've only done the boss once before, and I've probably died pretty quickly. I don't entirely know what the pattern is, and that means that the burst heal is necessary. So we're gonna fast forward again, and I'll be back. And there we go. So the burst heal has 1 second left when I enter the loading zone. Now was I at full health on Lua? Let's see. I was not. I should have swapped to Merope for that loading zone then. It is a misplay of loading zones. Incredible. I suppose the other possibility is that I didn't want to have to wait for the 12 seconds to swap back. Now you'll notice this boss's patterns are actually very dodgeable. It's a painful boss, and some characters flat out don't work here. My first run of this, I actually played as Nedian, and the boss was impossible, because if you try to move near that, you just die, right? Look at all those lasers, each of those does like 600 damage, you're going to explode. Nedian just can't heal through it. On this case, I'm actually running range on the Lua, and I'm able to dodge most of them. I get hit once there, but that's largely okay. The biggest issue is the lasers. Jumping over them requires me playing around the 120 ping. I have to jump over a little bit before, so in this case I actually just Merope shield because I'm not 100% confident. Other times I will outright try to jump it, and I believe I succeed for the most part. There might be 1 or 2 times where I don't. I dodge, it was into a bad position. The lasers do 672 damage, which means that I won't get a burst because I'll get 4-shotted. I also should have shielded there, my reaction time was just too slow. Or I just didn't think that it would end there. Regardless, it was a misplay. My Merope gets very low from it. Bad times all around. But this boss, being extremely weak, like health-wise, it's just melting, right? It's gonna die anytime now. I'm not too concerned. I could probably jump over that. Good, I do. The issue is if you don't jump over the laser, it can kill you in basically 2 hits. And the amount of damage that it does is just enough that you won't burst heal. So, despite me saying that it's a weak and easy boss, I suppose it is easy, but it's very strong at the same time. I get bursted because I got hit by a laser bot, which is actually very lucky because if I didn't, I would have died right there. You'll see I'm down to 687 health. If I hadn't gotten hit by the laser bot, I wouldn't have gotten the burst, and the next hit would have killed me. Very lucky. I most likely did not deserve to live there. What I should have done is swap to Merope and pop the shield, but that's just how it goes. And there it is. Boom. Rank 1 with a 20-minute run. Largely because of standing around to heal and everything. You could realistically do this in like 11 minutes or less. But yes, that's all for that one. Thank you all for watching, and I've got another one coming up soon, so stay tuned.